Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I want to talk about advice from an old king before you inherit the throne. Before you wear the crown, understand the weight it carries. Power without wisdom is a kingdom built on sand. The throne is not a seat of comfort, it's a battlefield of responsibility. Greatness isn't given. It's earned in silence, forged in fire, and tested in storms. An old king doesn't speak to be heard, he speaks to be remembered. Learn from those who walked the path, or prepare to be broken by it. You don't inherit leadership, you become worthy of it. So, the strength of a kingdom lies not in gold, but in the heart of the one who leads it. Before you rule the world, learn to master yourself. Legacy isn't built by titles, but by truth, courage, and honor. Today, let these words not just inspire you, but ignite the leader within you. The old king has lived the pain, seen the glory, and made the sacrifices. Now he speaks so you can rise wiser, stronger, and ready to reign. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I want to talk about something that sits at the very core of true leadership. The first piece of wisdom passed down from the old king is this: a true leadership begins where ego ends. This isn't just a clever phrase. It's a principle etched into the heart of every great ruler who has stood the test of time. Ego is the mask that fools wear to hide insecurity, but a leader doesn't need to pretend. A real leader sees beyond their own reflection and recognizes the weight of the responsibility they carry. When ego is present, decisions are made for pride, for applause, for power. But when ego is stripped away, what remains is clarity, service, and a vision bigger than self. Many step toward the throne craving control, respect, and recognition. They want the crown not because they are ready to serve, but because they are eager to be seen. But the throne is not about being seen. It's about seeing others. The moment your vision becomes inward, the kingdom begins to suffer. Ego blinds. It tells you you're always right. It whispers that others are beneath you. It convinces you that your value is in your status. But ego is a liar. And a king who listens to ego is a king who leads his people into darkness. The old king has sat on the throne long enough to know that leadership is not about self-glorification. It is about sacrifice. The ego resists sacrifice. It craves validation, not growth. It prefers comfort over challenge. And that is why the old king tells you, leave your ego at the palace gates, because it cannot walk with you into the halls of power. The king who leads from ego may gain temporary obedience, but never lasting loyalty. People may fear you, but they will not follow you with their hearts. True leadership inspires, not because of a crown, but because of a cause. When you remove ego, you make space for humility. And humility is not weakness. It's power under control. It is the strength to listen when you could command. It is the courage to admit you were wrong when you could have blamed others. It is the grace to elevate those around you, knowing their growth does not diminish your own. A humble leader asks questions, seeks counsel, and understands that leadership is a journey of learning and not a destination of perfection. Ego resists learning. It assumes it already knows. But a true leader never stops evolving. Ego thrives in isolation. It builds walls, not bridges. But the old king teaches that a leader must be connected to the people. You must hear their cries, feel their struggles, and lead with empathy. Ego dismisses the voices of others. It silences dissent, punishes disagreement, and surrounds itself with yes men. But a wise king values truth over flattery. He understands that disagreement does not equal disloyalty. In fact, a true leader invites opposing views because he knows that iron sharpens iron, and real growth comes through challenge, not comfort. As you prepare to inherit the throne, ask yourself, do you want power or do you want purpose? Ego seeks power. It wants the title, the spotlight, the applause. But purpose seeks meaning. It longs to make a difference. It leads not for the throne, but for the people. When ego leads, hearts are lost. But when purpose leads, legacies are built. The old king reminds you that people will not remember how loudly you spoke, but how deeply you listened. They won't remember how grand your palace was, but how safe they felt under your rule. That kind of leadership is only possible when ego dies and character takes its place. True leadership is forged in the fire of self-discipline. It demands that you conquer your own pride before you try to command others. Ego wants to lead without serving, but leadership without service is tyranny. The old king has seen kingdoms crumble under the weight of arrogant rulers who refuse to bend, to learn, to change. Ego builds empires of glass, beautiful but fragile. One blow of truth and everything shatters. But character builds stone upon stone, creating a foundation that endures storms. When you step into leadership without ego, something shifts. You stop asking, how can this benefit me? And start asking, how can I uplift them? You no longer fear criticism because your worth isn't tied to your image. You're not driven by applause, but by alignment with your principles. You choose integrity over popularity, even when it costs you. That's the kind of leadership the throne demands. Not a loud voice, but a steady hand. Not a grand image, but a grounded soul. And none of this is possible if ego sits on your shoulder, whispering lies into your ear. The old king looks into your eyes and doesn't ask how confident you are. He asks how teachable you are. Because confidence built on ego is a castle built on sand. But confidence built on humility is unshakable. It comes from knowing your flaws, owning your failures, and growing anyway. Ego hates failure. It takes it personally. But leaders without ego embrace failure as a teacher. They rise wiser, not bitter. They stand taller, not harder. They move forward, not with pride, but with purpose. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I want to dive into the second timeless truth shared by the old king. Wisdom is earned through scars, not titles. The throne does not grant understanding. A crown on your head does not place insight in your heart. A title can be handed down, but wisdom must be earned the hard way, through failure, through pain, through enduring the long and difficult roads that no one celebrates. Every scar tells a story, and every story contains a lesson. These are the lessons that shape a ruler. These are the truths that cannot be taught in books or ceremonies. Only in the quiet moments of reflection after surviving what was meant to destroy you. There are many who chase power with eagerness, believing that the title alone will give them clarity. They think being king will suddenly make them wise. But the old king knows better. He did not become wise when he wore the crown. He became wise when he carried its burden through seasons of betrayal, loss, sacrifice, and fire. The scars on his back are not signs of weakness. They are medals of survival. He has failed, he has bled, he has been broken, and yet he rose. And every time he did, he took the lesson with him. That's how wisdom is born. Wisdom is not the same as intelligence. Intelligence may come from learning, from theory, from words. But wisdom comes from the wounds left behind when life doesn't go as planned. It's knowing that some battles are better avoided, not because you fear them, but because you've already fought enough to know they are not worth the cost. It's understanding that true strength is restraint, that silence can be louder than shouting, and that sometimes the most powerful decision is to walk away, not strike back. This kind of wisdom cannot be faked. It doesn't wear fancy robes or sit in echo chambers. It listens more than it speaks and walks humbly even when it holds power. The old king wants you to understand that scars are not shameful. They are sacred. They are proof that you showed up when it mattered, that you endured what others could not, and that you emerged on the other side more aware, more grounded, and more capable. Titles can be bought, inherited, or stolen, but wisdom, that must be earned in the silence of the storm, in the nights when no one is watching, when decisions carry real weight and mistakes leave real damage. It is there, in the furnace, that the heart of a true ruler is formed. Many young leaders make the mistake of believing that appearances matter more than substance. They put on the royal garments, stand tall, speak with authority, but beneath the surface they are empty. They haven't yet faced the hardship that carves real depth into the soul. The old king does not envy them. He pities them because he knows that when the storm comes, and it always comes, titles offer no shelter. It is only wisdom carved by scars that will keep you standing. Wisdom teaches patience. It shows you that not every challenge must be met with force. That timing is everything. That sometimes waiting is the most powerful move. The impatient ruler reacts. The wise ruler responds. The impatient one speaks first and listens later. The wise one listens first and speaks only when necessary. These are not traits granted by titles. These are habits built through years of making mistakes, paying the price, and vowing to do better next time. Scars are also reminders of empathy. When you have been hurt, you understand the pain of others. A king who has known loss does not dismiss the grief of his people. A ruler who has known hunger does not ignore the cries of the starving. A leader who has stumbled does not shame those who fall. Instead, he lifts them because he remembers what it was like to be broken, and he knows how much strength it takes to rise. That connection, the one forged through shared struggle, is what separates a cold commander from a compassionate king. The old king reminds you that wisdom is not loud. It doesn't need to announce itself. It shows up in decisions, in actions, in the way you treat people when no one's watching. It lives in humility, not pride, in awareness, not arrogance. And it's often mistaken for simplicity because it avoids unnecessary drama. But don't confuse peace with weakness. The one who holds wisdom can walk into chaos with calm because they've been through worse and survived. They don't panic. They don't pretend. They just lead. If you desire to inherit the throne, know this: the crown is only a symbol. What gives it meaning is not gold, not jewels, not tradition, but the scars of the one who wears it. The scars tell the people, I have been through the fire and I came out not bitter but better. The scars say, I didn't run from difficulty. I stood, I endured, I learned. And that is the leader worth following. That is the wisdom worth honoring. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I speak to you about a lesson the old king learned not through privilege, but through pressure, failure, and endurance. The crown magnifies your character. Build it before you wear it. The world often sees the crown as the ultimate destination, the highest level of achievement, a mark of power and authority. But what the world doesn't see is that the crown doesn't change you. It reveals you. It's a magnifying glass, not a mask. It doesn't make you wise. It exposes your wisdom or your ignorance. It doesn't create virtue. It amplifies whatever is already inside you. That's why the old king warns the next heir, do the work within before you take the seat above. A throne doesn't give you strength. It doesn't make you honorable. It doesn't gift you loyalty, courage, patience, or self-control. Those must be built long before the crown ever touches your head. Leadership doesn't begin on coronation day. It begins in the decisions you make when no one is watching. It begins in how you treat the ones who can do nothing for you. It begins in your habits, your words, your thoughts. What you tolerate in private becomes the foundation of what the public will eventually see. The greater the title, the greater the spotlight, and the brighter that spotlight, the more your character will be revealed. The old king has seen many rise to power too soon. They wore the crown proudly, but beneath it they were hollow. They hadn't done the inner work. They mistook influence for integrity, applause for approval, and charisma for character, but charisma fades and applause always dies down. When that happens, all you're left with is who you are when the crown comes off. And if that person is impatient, selfish, insecure, or arrogant, then the crown will crush you instead of elevating you. You may sit on the throne, but you will rule nothing, not even yourself. The throne is a magnifier. If you are greedy, it will reveal your hunger for more. If you are kind, it will shine a light on your compassion. If you are weak, it will expose your fragility. That's why the old king tells you, build your character now in the shadows, when no one is praising you, when the responsibilities are still small. Because when the weight of leadership comes, it won't give you time to build. It will only give you chances to reveal what you've already built. Character is built in the small things, in keeping promises, even when it's inconvenient, in telling the truth, even when it's uncomfortable, in owning your mistakes, even when it's easier to blame someone else. It's built in how you handle pressure, how you treat people in frustration, how you react when things don't go your way. These small tests become the foundation of your reign. The old king didn't become wise because of the crown. He became wise because he learned from the years leading up to it. He failed, he was humbled, and he let those moments shape him. Before the crown magnifies your name, let your life magnify your values. What do you stand for? What do you believe in when everything is stripped away? When the cameras are off, the doors are closed, and only your conscience is in the room. Who are you then? Because that person is the one the crown will amplify. That's the ruler people will see, whether you try to hide it or not. People may be fooled for a while, but time has a way of revealing truth. And the truth of your character will either be your greatest weapon or your biggest weakness. Many think power is about controlling others, but real power is about mastering yourself. The old king learned that long before he ever issued a decree. He learned that if you can't control your temper, your emotions will rule you. If you can't keep your word, your influence will rot. If you can't put others before yourself, you're not leading, you're exploiting. The world doesn't need more rulers with authority. It needs more rulers with integrity. Because in the end, titles fade. What remains is the legacy of your character and how you use the power that was given to you. The crown is heavy because it demands more than intelligence or strategy. It demands consistency. Not perfection, but consistency. A ruler must be dependable, rooted in values, and steady through storms. People don't follow your words, they follow your example. They don't remember how loudly you spoke, they remember how deeply you stood. And none of that is created by status. It's created by character. And character is not built on stages. It's built in silence, in struggle, in solitude. It's built through the choices you make when you think no one will ever find out. The old king passes the crown with the warnings. Don't let the weight of it break you. Let it reveal you. Let it bring out the best that's already inside. Because when the crown magnifies your character, it will either inspire a kingdom or destroy one. What it reveals depends on what you've prepared in your heart. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I want to share with you another timeless truth, spoken softly by the old king, but echoing with the weight of generations. A king's strength lies in the trust of his people, not the fear he commands. This truth may sound simple, but it is one that many rulers have ignored and paid the price for. The world often praises dominance, control, and intimidation, but the old king knows better. He has learned that while fear can control bodies, only trust can lead hearts. And in the end, it is the hearts of the people that sustain a kingdom, not just the power of a ruler. Fear is loud. It shouts to keep others in line. It uses threats, punishments, and manipulation. At first, it may seem effective. The people obey. They kneel. They stay quiet. But beneath the surface, resentment brews. Silence is not always agreement. Obedience is not always loyalty. And the moment fear weakens, even for a second, the foundation crumbles. The king who rules through fear is always watching over his shoulder, always tightening his grip, always at war with shadows. His strength may look mighty from the outside, but it is fragile and temporary, built on sand. Trust, on the other hand, is built slowly, patiently, consistently. It cannot be forced. It must be earned. The king who earns the trust of his people may not hear cheers every day, but he will sleep with peace in his heart. He doesn't need to watch every corner because he knows the people are with him, not against him. They may not always agree with him, but they know his heart. They know his word means something. They know he listens. They know he sees them. And that trust becomes a fortress stronger than any wall. The old king has seen rulers fall not because of enemies from outside, but because of disconnection from within. When people no longer feel seen, heard, or valued, they begin to withdraw. They become shadows in their own land. They stop caring. And when the time comes to stand with the king, they remain seated. A crown means nothing if the people beneath it no longer believe in the one who wears it. That is why the old king says, win their trust before you need their strength. Because when storms come, it is not fear that will keep them beside you. It is trust. Trust is built in truth, in transparency, in humility. A leader who hides behind lies or pretends to be perfect loses the connection that trust requires. People do not expect their king to be flawless. They expect him to be real, to own his mistakes, to correct them, to admit when he doesn't have all the answers. That kind of honesty builds a bridge between the throne and the people. It removes the distance and makes the leader human again, not above, but among. And in that space, trust grows. A king must understand that strength is not shown by how many kneel before him, but by how many rise because of him. The king who lifts his people, who empowers them, who shares credit and shoulders blame, becomes more than a ruler. He becomes a symbol, a source of hope, a pillar of stability. That kind of strength cannot be faked. It shines in moments of crisis, when everyone is watching, when fear is in the air, and the people look to the throne, not because they're afraid, but because they believe. Fear creates distance. Trust creates unity. A kingdom built on fear is one where voices are silenced, creativity is crushed, and truth is hidden. But a kingdom built on trust is alive. Ideas flow. Conversations happen. Problems are solved together. The people are not tools to be used, but partners to be respected. And in that mutual respect lies the true strength of a nation. When the people rise, the kingdom rises with them. When the people feel ownership, they protect it. Not because they're told to, but because they care. The old king urges you to ask yourself, how do your people feel when they hear your name? Do they fear punishment? Or do they feel protected? Do they speak of you in whispers or with pride? Do they walk with their heads down? Or do they walk taller because of your leadership? These questions are not just about reputation. They are about legacy. Fear may get you the throne, but only trust will keep it. And trust cannot be built in a day. It is built in how you show up every day. In consistency, in fairness, in compassion. Many kings have fallen while still wearing their crown, not because they lacked soldiers, but because they lacked connection. They forgot that the throne sits on the shoulders of the people. And when those shoulders collapse, so does everything else. The old king learned to listen more than he spoke, to walk among his people, to understand their needs, and to make decisions not just for glory, but for good. That is how he lasted. That is how he led. That is why, even in old age, his name is still spoken with honor. Not because people feared him, but because they trusted him. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I want to speak on a lesson carved deep into the heart of the old king, a truth forged in his quietest hours and loudest battles. It says, discipline is the unseen throne upon which all greatness sits. While the world celebrates moments of success, crowns of glory and grand victories, the old king reminds us that none of those are possible without the foundation of self, discipline. Discipline is the silent architect of greatness, the force behind consistency, the edge that separates those who dream from those who do. Before you can lead others, before you can carry the crown, before you can command a kingdom, you must command yourself. Discipline is not about control over others. It's about control over yourself. The ability to do what must be done, even when it's hard, even when it's unseen, even when it doesn't bring instant rewards. Discipline is waking up early when comfort says sleep in. It's staying focused when distraction begs for attention. It's choosing truth when lies would be easier. Discipline is the voice that whispers, keep going, when everything around you screams, quit. And while no one may cheer for your discipline in the moment, it is what prepares you to be worthy of the throne. The old king has seen many rise with talent, but fall from the absence of discipline. Talent can open doors, but discipline keeps them open. Charisma can win applause, but discipline earns respect. Ambition can carry you quickly, but only discipline can carry you far. It is the repetition of small decisions over time that builds the fortress of character. Discipline shapes how you think, how you speak, how you lead. It guards you from temptation, from arrogance, from laziness, and from the many silent enemies that wait for those who hold power. Without discipline, the throne becomes a dangerous place. Power without restraint turns into tyranny. Freedom without structure turns into chaos. Influence without boundaries leads to corruption. Discipline is the force that holds the crown steady on your head when the weight of leadership threatens to knock you down. It is the quiet companion that walks with you when the path gets dark. It is the internal compass that keeps you aligned with your purpose, even when others lose their way. The old king remembers his early days when the world seemed too loud, too chaotic, too full of choices. He remembers how easy it was to be pulled by opinions, to chase popularity, to seek quick victories. But he also remembers the moment he realized that true leadership meant sacrificing short-term ease for long-term integrity. Discipline became his shield. It helped him stay the course when others swayed. It kept him grounded when praise inflated his ego and anchored when criticism tried to shake him. He learned that while emotion may ignite passion, only discipline sustains progress. Discipline is also how you earn the trust of others. People don't just follow what you say, they follow what you consistently do. They watch your habits, your reactions, your follow-through. Discipline means showing up with the same energy in silence as you do in the spotlight. It means honoring your word even when no one is checking. It means making decisions based on principles, not feelings. And that kind of consistency becomes a pillar others can lean on. To the one preparing to inherit the throne, the old king advises, make discipline your first command. Before you seek to change the world, master your mornings. Before you demand loyalty from others, show loyalty to your own values. Before you enforce rules, live by them. Let your life be a message louder than your words. Let your routine be the proof of your readiness. For it is in the hidden hours, the repeated disciplines, the sacrifices that no one sees, that true greatness is forged. Discipline is not just about what you do. It's about what you choose not to do. It's saying no to distractions, no to easy outs, no to temptations that could compromise your mission. It's understanding that every yes to something small is a no to something greater if you're not careful. The old king knows that the most dangerous threat to a leader is not always external. It is internal. It is the drift that happens when discipline fades, when standards are lowered, when excuses are made, when urgency dies. The crown may be made of gold, but the real throne is invisible. It's the one you build with your decisions. It's the discipline to train when others relax, to study when others entertain, to reflect when others rush, to stand firm when others fold. That invisible throne of discipline is what supports every great king when storms rise. It is what gives your word weight, your actions impact, your leadership stability. People will see your success, but rarely understand the discipline behind it. That's why the old king says, discipline may be unseen, but it is never unfelt. It echoes in your choices, your consistency, and your legacy. Ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters, today I want to bring you closer to a truth whispered by the old king, a truth that sits at the very core of leadership, of legacy, of kingship itself. Before you lead others, conquer the chaos within yourself. The throne may be a place of authority, but the real battlefield lies within. Before you give orders, before you command armies, before you are called, Your Majesty, you must first face the inner storms that rage quietly behind your eyes. Because if you do not master what is inside, you will be destroyed by what is outside. The old king learned this through pain, through isolation, through years of wrestling not with enemies, but with himself. The chaos within comes in many forms. It is the pride that disguises itself as confidence, the insecurity that hides beneath arrogance, the fear of failure that masks itself with perfectionism, the hunger for approval that leads to compromising your values. These are not seen in public. They do not shout, but they whisper in your mind. They shape your decisions. They color your judgments. And if left unconfronted, they will corrupt your leadership from the inside out. The old king says, before you hold a scepter, hold a mirror, look deeply, be honest. Ask yourself, who am I when no one is watching? True leadership does not begin when others follow. It begins when you stop running from your own shadows. The throne magnifies everything within you. If there is unresolved anger, it will turn into cruelty. If there is envy, it will breed division. If there is a thirst for validation, it will turn service into self-promotion. But if there is peace, you will lead with clarity. If there is humility, you will lead with strength. If there is vision, you will lead with purpose. You do not get to choose whether or not your inner world will affect your outer leadership. You only choose whether or not you will face it. The old king remembers his younger self, restless and impulsive. He thought leading meant controlling others. He believed decisions made in confidence were always right. But over time, he came to understand that true power comes from inner stillness. That silence is not weakness, but mastery. That reacting to every emotion is not strength, it is slavery. And so he began the hardest journey of all, The journey inward, he examined his motives. He questioned his fears. He broke himself down so he could be rebuilt on truth. And what emerged was not just a king, but a man worthy of being followed. To conquer your inner chaos, you must first sit with it. Not run from it. Not numb it with noise, distraction, or flattery. Sit with your doubts. Sit with your anger. Sit with your wounds. And ask them what they are teaching you. This is not weakness. This is courage. This is the kind of bravery that builds a legacy. Because the king who knows himself cannot be shaken by public opinion. He cannot be manipulated by pressure. He cannot be swayed by every new trend or threat. He stands not because he is perfect, but because he is rooted. The chaos within is not the enemy. It is the test. The king who conquers it becomes wise, balanced, steady. He speaks not to impress, but to inspire. He acts not to control, but to serve. He is not driven by ego, but by purpose. His decisions are not based on emotion, but on values. And because he has faced his own darkness, he does not fear the darkness in others. He becomes a mirror of strength and a model of resilience. He becomes a light, not because he shines alone, but because he has made peace with his own shadows. To those preparing for leadership, the old king says, do not fear the silence, the solitude, the discomfort. That is where the real throne is waiting. That is where clarity is born, not in crowds, but in quiet, not in glory, but in growth, not in applause, but in awareness. The most dangerous king is the one who has never wrestled with his own spirit, because that king is still a servant, serving his emotions, his pride, his pain. But the king who has mastered his soul, he becomes unshakable. He does not need to prove himself because he knows himself. The crown is heavy, not just because of its gold, but because it carries the weight of every choice, every voice, every life under your care. If your spirit is in chaos, your reign will be as well. But if your soul is anchored, your leadership will be unbreakable. The old king sits quietly and watches the next heir. He does not ask about strategy, power, or wealth. He asks, have you sat alone with your fears? Have you asked yourself the hard questions? Have you faced the parts of you that no one sees? Because those are the questions that determine whether a leader will rise or fall. Those are the questions that shape a crown into a calling,